This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk with Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young on ESPN Radio 94.1.
On this glorious Saturday morning, the 12th day of September, it is 757 Saturday Sports Talk, brought to you by Larry King Law Firm with the Coach Ed Young. I am Matt Hatfield. Phone lines are open for you to give a call to us and our guest, Tom Dolan of the Virginia High School League. Our number is 757-687-9494. You can also tweet us, too, at 757 Sports Talk. And we got a caller for Tom. We say hello to John in Norfolk. John, you're on ESPN Radio 94.1. Good morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, the question is, if it's been proven that, with the virus or whatever the case may be, indoor is probably the worst place for you to be. So why start with an indoor sport? Because I think that would have a ripple effect on outdoor sports. And I think that it would just make more sense, just thinking. I'm not a doctor or anything like that,
right,
but I'm just thinking like it would just make more sense to start outdoors because you're outdoors and, nothing is like recycling and the ability to get, to contract the COVID, I think would be very, more limited than it would be if you were indoors. And thank you for taking my call.
You bet, John. Thank you for calling in. Okay, Tom, so in the conversations with the medical advisory committee there in the VHSL, has there been any kind of proof, or is it more opinion that the indoor could be a higher risk than the outdoor sports?
Well, I think there is the thought that the indoor could be more problematic than the outdoor. But again, we get back to that same piece because some of our sports, regardless of where you're going to do them, aren't conducive to the time period. But also in the fall, we have indoor and outdoor sports that are going on. So again, it kind of got back to which ones do you carve out and which students do you put at risk of being able to have their full experience. And so that was a tough decision to make, but it's one that we felt like, again, in the unknown that, there may be some issues that we were going to need to mitigate. And frankly, we're working on mitigations for all of our sports, is that we're dealing with a lot more mitigation strategies on indoor sports than outdoor sports. And just to give you an example of kind of how we're mitigating those indoor sports where there may be a more of an opportunity for the COVID piece is getting the first two pieces of the bleachers. Nobody sits in there. Maybe teams sit there, but no fans can sit there, limiting the access to the near the playing surface for players, coaches, cheerleaders, that kind of thing, to a minimum, so that you can mitigate that stuff. But again, I think there is some thought process on the outdoor sports being a little bit easier to handle. But as we're seeing with some of the recreational and other activities, we've got indoor and outdoor going on now, and to my knowledge, we haven't had any significant issues at this point, which leads us to believe that the plan that we've got in place is probably still a good one at this point.
Good question, John. We thank you for doing that. 757-687-9494 is your chance to hop in here and ask Tom Dolan of the VHSL any questions you have concerning high school sports and the return to sports. Also, our Twitter page is 757 Sports Talk here on ESPN Radio 94.1. And Tom, I want to go back to the last segment. We're talking about the complexity of the state and the geography piece. How much are you influenced by what other states are doing? For example, I saw just the other day that Delaware has recently reversed course and decided to do fall sports now here, beginning practice methods at the end of the month, and I think games in October. Is that something that the VHSL pays much attention to, or not so much?
We discuss every day what other states are doing. The unfortunate piece is the numbers and percentages in other states, and also the guidelines from each state. There's nothing uniform, so everybody is kind of doing their own thing from one state to the other. Again, Delaware being as small as it is, it actually probably is from the standpoint of number of schools and everything, would be equivalent to the Tidewater area as far as a state and the numbers and that kind of thing. So imagine that that's all you had to mitigate was that one area, on the east south side of the tunnel, and that how much easier that might be. So from a Delaware standpoint, I can see their move, especially if their numbers are showing that, and I don't know what their numbers are, but we still seem to be running a rate of somewhere in the 7 to 8%, which everyone said that we need to get to 5 before we really can say we're in a good position. So as long as we continue to run 1,000 cases, 800 to 1,000 cases a day, and a 7.5 to 8% number, we're still going to need to pretty much stay where we are. We're going to stay in phase 3 as long as we're there, and as long as we're in phase 3, I don't see us moving except for potentially getting some relaxation in some of the absolutes that are in that phase.
Tom, I'm going to shift a little bit off of the COVID part, and there's that other factor that's looming out there that's affected our country greatly, and that's the social injustice stuff that's going on, the protests, the rallies. And, in fact, I understand that there's supposed to be a rally in Richmond on Monday concerning football on the high school level. I'm not sure how much privy, I've just found out how much privy you guys are to this, how much of the social injustice factors that you've been thinking about. What happens if there's a protest during some of the athletic contest, national anthem situations? Can you talk, are you at liberty to talk anything about what the VHSL has looked at on those levels?
Yeah, those are local issues as far as what is done and how it's done, and again, I think those are the kind of issues that we're probably the last bastion of education-based athletics that's out there, and these are conversations that this is where coaches are what they are, which is educators that coach. Having those conversations with their students, how's the best way for us to recognize the social issues of the day and deal with those in the right way, and that match our community and do what we need to do. So we've always said that's up to the local school division and school board on how they handle those situations. Our hope is that education piece of education athletics is a strong part of that, and that everybody realizes that these are significant issues and that they need to be discussed and they need to be dealt with, but they also need to be dealt with in a way that makes the right impact and doesn't take away from what the student athletes are all about and what they're trying to achieve as those educated student athletes.
When you mention that, you're right. That comes in the hands of the local situations, definitely the coaches, because they have the first contact with the kids. They have that feeling being in front of those kids. And a lot of times we like to think sports helps in these kind of situations because it is a unity thing. And if you look at the pro sports, college sports, which are getting started, there's a lot of unifying factors going on that we hope would continue along the high school level. Now, I don't think high school athletes per se themselves have as much say as pro athletes or maybe even the college level, but they're still entitled to a voice, and usually that goes through the team concept. And I like to think that the unity would take care of that, but I think that is something, as you said, that you guys have your finger on that pulse just in case that comes through, but obviously that's going to be to the local school districts.
Yeah, and we were aware of that. We've been made aware of Monday that there's a possibility of people who would like to see high school athletics start immediately to start. And, again, people have the right to make their feelings known. And, I've talked to enough people in the last 6 months who don't agree with exactly what we're doing. And, you got to respect their opinion. That's all there is to it. Two things I think that are significant are people say the reward is worth the risk. And frankly, I'm not sure where you identify what the risk level becomes the good versus the bad. And the other is the parents who believe that, if I sign a waiver for my child, that should allow them to play. And frankly, I think you run into legal issues there because you're signing away the rights of a minor, and all of those kind of things concern me. When you talk about social issues and rights and that kind of thing, that's my job. That's what I deal with every day. And some of the thought process at this point scares me, but I understand the frustration that these parents have relative to the loss that their kids are having, and it's tough. It's difficult every day to know where we are.
No doubt about it. There's a lot of frustration for sure. We're talking with Tom Dolan of the VHSL here on ESPN Radio 94.1. A few more minutes here with him on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. And to kind of follow up on that, Tom, there are some events going on that we know are not VHSL sanctioned or sponsored, whatever the term you want to use, yet raised some questions. Just last night, in fact, there was a 7-on-7 league that had hundreds, I dare say thousands of people in Virginia Beach, an event that charges players and teams upwards of, I think it's $100 or more of an entry fee. I believe they charge fans too. And I know basketball is going to have a similar event here in the Tidewater area and Richmond and other places around the state that an outfit is putting on. And I want to know, head coaches were at this 7-on-7 event of high schools, and there's not a lot of clarity to what coaches, take our guy here, Ed Young, who was not there, but specifically a head coach of a sport can do. For those out there wondering, is that simply up to just a school district division to establish those guidelines and enforce them if broken, or does the VHSL have any power or say on that?
Well, it's kind of a historical thing. We used to have an out-of-season practice rule that was very strict on what you could do. We also used to have a rule in our book that said that you were committed to the high school team during the season regardless. Again, those have been challenged, and judges have told us you're stepping outside of your territory a little bit in regards to what you're doing. So I'm not sure we didn't go too far the other way with our out-of-season practice rule. I do believe in our independent team rule, where a student, when they have free time, should be able to do whatever they want. But, again, that's kind of where we are. As long as the coaches and players are not representing their school in any way, and that's equipment, jerseys, transportation, how facilities are paid for, if they're rented, and that kind of thing, those are up to schools and school divisions if they want to put in their own restrictions. But from the VHSL standpoint, that starts to put us in an area where we're dictating to someone during their off time, and that's just not where I think we need to be or should be from a organizational standpoint.
Tom, you and I have had this discussion many years about the off-season rules, and it's nice to have them in place, but unfortunately you're always going to have those few that circumvent them, or even the fewer that just outright break them. And if the individual school districts don't do anything, it's unfair. But what can a Virginia High School League do if the individual school district or school doesn't take care of it? And when we allowed the out-of-season practice rule, it took care of a lot of things. There were some times in there where you have like the dead periods in July and that, and it seems like it works fairly well. And people aren't going as overboard as some people think. I mean, I can only speak for myself. I'm not practicing every day in the off season. One of the things that I do want to talk about on this is, we allow the high school teams to participate in these so-called extra leagues or camps or whatever. You cannot use the school name. I can't use Nansemond River. I can use Warriors. I can use the River. I can't use the school's jerseys. I can coach, if I'm not mistaken, on the sideline. Why is that allowed, but you can't use the school name?
And again, it's not so much, Ed, that you can't use the school name, but as soon as the school name itself is used, everybody associates it with the school. You don't have to have one single player from Nansemond River on the team, but if somebody sees Nansemond River there and sees you in the gym, then automatically Nansemond River's playing out of season. So it's really not a mandate, but it's one of the things that I encourage strongly from our office is that use of that name like that and jerseys that give the appearance of the high school, you just create issues that you're constantly having to answer for that you shouldn't. That shouldn't be part of what you're doing. So again, it's technically you could probably use Nansemond River, but it's going to be a pain in the butt from the time you start till the time you finish when you do it.
Well, Tom, we thank you so much for the time. We've got plenty more questions. I'm sure we'll get to you at some point here before the calendar turns from 2020 to 2021. We thank you not only for coming on the program, but to you and Dr. Horner, everyone at the VHSL, looking out for the best interests of these student athletes and these coaches and people all across the state. You stay safe and well, and we'll keep in touch, my friend, all right?
Hey, I'll be glad to come on anytime and talk to you and take questions. Glad to always like being on the show.
Thank you, Tom.
Appreciate it, Tom.
Y'all take care.
That is Tom Dolan with the Virginia High School League, the Associate Director, here with us on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. We'll take a time out, a sports and update with Dino Franza, and then we got David Teal, the Hall of Famer, coming your way to talk some ACC college football and more right here on your home for football, donuts. We got everything on ESPN Radio 94.1.